Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this presentation on the process that we use to collaborate with the City of Oxnard, California on redesigning their website in WordPress. Before I jump in, I do want to take a moment to just acknowledge the wildfires that are happening in the Los Angeles area. It's actually about 60 miles from our clients in Oxnard, so I just want to say the entire team here at Atten is really holding all of those impacted in our thoughts. My name is Andrea Billings, and as Jenna said, I'm Atten's Director of Project Management. I served as the project manager for our collaboration with the City of Oxnard, and I'm joined by fellow project leads, Catherine, our design director, and Allie, our senior WordPress developer. If you have any questions at any point during the webinar, please add them to the chat or to the QA, and we'll save some time at the end to address them. For now, let's dive in. Atten's relationship with the city of Oxnard began in the summer of 2022. The city's website at that time was nearly 10 years old and built on a legacy framework in WordPress. As you can imagine, the site was not well maintained and it lacked regular security updates, making it increasingly vulnerable in today's technical landscape. Furthermore, its design was dated, and the site's architecture and organization made it challenging for users to get the information they needed quickly. Long story short, it was no longer serving residents, businesses, or visitors of the city. The city chose to partner with Atten due to our deep expertise in WordPress, a platform their numerous content editors at the city were already familiar with, our commitment to creating user-focused solutions through direct user research, as well as our passion for creating beautiful, responsive, and human-centered designs. For this webinar, we'll focus on the process that Atten employed in collaboration with the city so that you can gain a solid understanding of how we got from project initiation all the way to site launch. At Atten, our very first phase of any digital engagement is known as project initiation. Some folks call it kickoff. Either word is fine. This is a brief but important phase because it sets the tone and foundation for a successful partnership. As the project manager for this collaboration, I began by setting up tools to aid in asynchronous communication and collaboration. We like to use a tool called Basecamp as a place for communication and documentation sharing. This is used in lieu of email to ensure full transparency to all members of the project team. Jira is a ticket management tool that we rely on heavily when we get into the development phase of our project to manage discrete tasks on a Kanban-style board. Finally, we offer clients the option to use Slack for daily informal ad hoc communication, and we also utilize Google Drive as the repository for all project documentation. It's important to note that some clients do often use things like Teams, and we're happy to join you on those platforms. After project setup, I quickly scheduled a pre-kickoff call with our main point of contact at the city. In this call, I gathered information to aid in project planning. We discussed who the city is planning to have involved in the project, as well as other stakeholders they'd like to engage. In the case of Oxnard, they wisely opted to keep their core project team small with just 4 people. Whenever selecting a project team, I recommend that it be no larger than 6 to 8 people, and the people selected need to be able to do a couple of things. One, they need to have the capacity in their schedules to attend weekly working meetings, as well as take on work outside of those calls. This is an important one. They need to have a vested interest in the website as a whole, and not just an interest in one specific area. And 3, they need to have some level of authority to make decisions on the project. Next, I led an internal kickoff meeting with the core team on Atten's side, which included the faces you see in this webinar. Finally, we met with the client's core team for a formal kickoff meeting that acted as a meet and greet, as well as provided a space for beginning to dig into the client's hopes and aspirations for their future website. High-touch project management and ongoing task prioritization ensures that we deliver the best product possible. That's why, as a project manager, I was actively involved from start to finish. Some of the activities that helped run this project move so smoothly included creating a detailed project plan that included weekly budget tracking, a realistic timeline, and robust sprint tracking during the development phase, planning for and facilitating regular working meetings over Zoom to check in about priorities, share progress, review backlog items, and more. Documenting meeting notes as well as key decisions and sharing those regularly in Basecamp for a future point of reference. Running sprint planning sessions prior to each development sprint to align on implementation plans and define acceptance criteria. Being available to field ad hoc questions from both the internal team and the client. And finally, providing weekly status updates and snapshot reports to show exactly where we were tracking in respect to the project's budget and timeline. It's important to note that unlike some other agencies, project managers at Atten do not act as firewalls between clients and our team, but rather we seek to help find the right person for the particular project need and then connect our clients directly to the person best suited to support them. The project initiation phase is brief, usually only a couple of weeks long, but it really helps to set us off on the right foot. From here, we move directly into the strategy phase of our project, which begins with user research. Any large website redesign project represents a significant investment of time, energy, and money from the client and their organization, and this was certainly no different for the city of Oxnard. I think a serious risk of any digital project is building the wrong thing, which can look like not asking the right questions at the onset to test our assumptions, broaden our perspective, and develop a research-based approach that truly engages audiences and empowers internal teams. So let's look at how we approached user engagement and strategy with Oxnard. For all projects, we aim to take a data-driven approach. For this reason, on municipality web projects, we often start by looking at census demographics, which told us that Oxnard has a predominantly Hispanic community with a large number of bilingual speaking citizens. From early conversations with leaders at the city, we gained an understanding of who Oxnard is as a community, one with deep multicultural roots, a real sense of pride, particularly as it relates to the city's delicious tacos, temperate weather, and an embracing of diversity. For the strategy phase of this project, we wanted to do as much as we could to engage external users, whether that was residents, businesses, or visitors, while also honoring the resources the client had available to dedicate to this phase of the project. We ultimately honed in on utilizing a mix of qualitative and quantitative research methods. Next, we analyzed available analytics, including reviewing key metrics in the client's Matomo account, which, if you're not familiar with it, I certainly wasn't, is a tool very similar to Google Analytics, but it offers a bit more privacy protection in regards to users' data. We also utilized those most recent census findings. Next, we distributed an internal stakeholder survey to city government employees. We intentionally worked with the client to gain representation from as many departments and service providers as possible, especially those that had direct contact with the public. From there, we moved into working sessions with city representatives, including dedicated workshops focused on design and audience refinement, and finally, focus groups with city residents, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Once we had the overall categorization and a high-level sense of the needs for the audiences, we moved into workshopping that information with internal stakeholders. For Oxnard, we ran a virtual workshop that included a number of departments from the city. By working with staff members with direct contact to the public, we were able to understand the breadth of questions, needs, updates, and resources audiences were looking for on the site, and the relative priority of those needs within our different user groups. Next, we met with representatives from the city, from librarians to recreation program managers, bilingual senior citizens, local business owners, and more. With these individuals, we were able to get a better sense for how they would expect to find information relating to their needs grouped together on the site, how they would prioritize those needs, and what type of iconography, I always struggle with that word, resonated with them. This engagement was made accessible to both English and Spanish-speaking citizens. Armed with our findings from our mixed methods research, we reconnected with our core project team to align on the website's core purpose, stated quite plainly, to serve as the official source of local government information regarding the Oxnard City Council, city services, programs, news, and events for members of the Oxnard community. It wasn't easy, but we also aligned on our top 2 priority goals. First, to connect users to the information they need. The method to achieving this goal included creating a user-centric navigation structure, creating compelling calls to action that direct users to relevant site content, and improving SEO through a number of different means. The second priority goal we agreed on was to create a clean and clear design where less is more. Catherine will discuss this goal in a bit more detail when we dig into the design phase of the project. In the final design, these menus and the user research really framed how we structured the site. On the services dropdown of the menu, we've highlighted important overviews, creating direct access to commonly visited and prioritized information. Each menu includes a strong focus on iconography, I got it this time, as another way to make content more accessible for non-English speaking users. In our interviews with city stakeholders, we zeroed in on the top processes that are complicated and/or would benefit from a guide. With our guidance, the client team wrote new website content that provides guides for things like securing residential permits and opening a business in the city. We also highlighted ways to engage with local government, as well as highlighting key locations in the city like libraries and parks. In addition, we introduced a utility navigation which calls out key action items for users, such as applying for permits or affordable housing. All of these user-centric menus then guide users into the different department sections of the site, in which related content is then showcased on the sidebar. From here, we moved into the design phase of the project, which means my time is up and I'll hand it over to Catherine.
Hey, thanks, Andrea. I'm excited to dive into the design process with you all, so let's get into it. So as you've heard, the strategy process establishes a lot of really important goals and establishes a lot of critical information for how we'll be planning the site. There are some points of direction for design, but it isn't enough for us to get fully started in that process. So our design process starts with a bit of discovery, focusing on understanding the client's branding as it is today and how they want it represented on the new website. Additionally, we seek to understand the client's goals for the design and user experience. In the case of Oxnard, we could obviously tell that the existing website was clunky, dated, and not serving their constituents. In strategy, we identified the following design goals for Oxnard. First, create a clean and elegant new website design. Then emphasize clear and simple iconography and language, an important factor for Oxnard's largely Hispanic population. And finally, use the design to authentically represent how Oxnard's people, amenities, culture, geography, and climate make the community a special place to live. With those strategic goals in mind, we kicked off the design process with a design workshop. The overall purpose of the workshop is to get the whole team to align on how the brand should be represented, identify areas for creative opportunity, and define an ambitious vision for the design going forward. We started with an identity audit where we gathered all materials relevant to the current visual identity, such as brand guidelines, website screenshots, illustrations, photography, and more. We sought clarity and context to what is fundamental to their identity that should be maintained in the final product. And we discussed what aspects can be reimagined or pushed further. In this exercise, we learned that Oxnard's primary color palette was vibrant and represented Oxnard's pride in the sunny, green landscapes by the Pacific Ocean, which is why yellow, green, and blue are so prominent. The challenge with this color palette is that it was too limited and had colors that would be challenging to pair with text in an accessible manner. The typography we found was also quite basic and lacked visual interest. So by the end of this identity audit, we found that there was a great opportunity to elevate Oxnard's color and typography. Also at the design workshop, we knew the city had beautiful photography available that was not being showcased on the current website. We discussed the ways that photography can help create a visual language that speaks to their communities by leveraging a mix of locally shot photography and then sourcing authentic stock photography to fill in those gaps. Next, we looked at iconography as a way to provide visual cues to textual elements such as buttons and links. We later opted to use Google's material icons since they were clean, clear, versatile, and easy to install on the website. During this process, we created an extended color palette to make the new design system more accessible and flexible. To discuss aspirations for the design, we looked at inspirational websites from peers and others across the web to unpack what design elements could work well for Oxnard, such as new typography, approaches to color, layout, graphic design, and more. Ultimately, the goals of the design workshop are to understand the client's initial preferences and ambitions, aiming toward an end product that is delightful and authentic. Using our findings from the workshop, we moved into design exploration using a tool called Style Tiles. Style tiles are visual collages of ideas outside the context of any device or use case. They allow us to share ideas for possible design directions that align with the design goals we identified earlier. Typically, you will see options for typography, color palette, graphic elements, visual themes, and more. Often, the discussion leads to a final decision on direction and lots of excitement for the upcoming design system. For the case of Oxnard, we chose clean, friendly typography, a bolder color palette paired with a softer light blue, and imagine wave-like motifs appearing throughout to represent Oxnard's coastline culture. Once we've aligned on those design fundamentals, we move on to design direction. This is where things really start to come together. Often, we kick off the design review process with a first look at the homepage. So for Oxnard, we focused on a splashy message, highlighted pages, featured resources, guides, services, and news updates. Each week during the design process, we show a batch of new design comps or updates. We gather feedback from the team and continue to iterate until we're sure the design is accomplishing those established goals. Over time, we provided page layouts for news, events, resources, basic pages, service pages, offices and locations, departments, projects, and search results. And as always, we design for all screen sizes, ensuring we're creating an experience that works just as well on a phone as it would on a desktop computer. We also test our design work to ensure that it's meeting accessibility standards and meet with Michaela, our in-house accessibility expert, for a thorough review of all of our work before we move into development. The most important thing to keep in mind throughout this process is that we're building a component-based design system that works for any page or author and displays perfectly on any device. The difference between the previous site and the new City of Oxnard website is a great illustration of the effectiveness of our strategy and design process. But creating design comps is not where that process ends. To wrap up design, we create thorough documentation of the established design system. This includes every single detail, no matter how small. The City of Oxnard design system includes everything from color palette to typographic hierarchy, styles, and all interactive elements. It also includes the components that will be used to build the site's content, giving developers everything they need to match the design in the browser. So that's a look at our design process. I love discussing design. If you have any questions or comments at the end of the presentation, I'd love to hear them. But for now, I'm going to pass things to Ellie, who will be covering the development process.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for walking us through your design process. Once we have that design system documented, the next step of the process is to turn that system into a fully functional custom theme. Our modular approach to design with the City of Oxnard's website persisted into the development stage through the creation of a component-based block library for authors to build content within an intuitive editing suite. So let's jump into some of the details on how we built those authoring tools tailored to the needs of the city's team. Based on the completed strategy and design work, we were able to identify some high-level development goals. The first step was to select a content management system for the site. The ability for their internal team to quickly iterate and spin up new content and features without the assistance of a developer was paramount to their authoring goals. Since the city's previous website had been built on WordPress and their authoring team was already familiar with the WordPress interface, the Oxnard team was eager to stay within that WordPress ecosystem. Given the flexibility and ease of use that WordPress provides right out of the box, we were also in agreement that it really was the right platform for this project. Second was the need for an intuitive authoring interface. Due to the broad range of technical expertise within the city's content editing team, we really wanted to provide authors with an intuitive, easy to leverage interface for building new content. Our third goal was to build flexible page layouts using modular development. We wanted to create a page building process that required no technical experience or code adjustments to rearrange content into new layouts while maintaining the guardrails of the established design system. The final major goal was for all content on the site to be accessible via assistive technology and translatable to meet the needs of the city's diverse audience. The primary focus of the City of Oxnard's website is to provide vital information to the city's residents. For this reason, the city chose to move away from self-hosting the website on their internal servers. In the past, they had experienced downtime issues due to a server outage that resulted in data loss. This was a major factor in their decision to move hosting to a specialized hosting provider. Their three crucial needs that they were looking to see met were improved uptimes, data redundancy to prevent data loss caused by server outages, and additional security measures to prevent direct code access on a live site. For these reasons, they chose to host their site through Pantheon, which provides a 99.99% uptime service level agreement, data redundancy through their containerized infrastructure and automated backup system, and security measures that require all code to be deployed first through a test environment for quality assurance prior to reaching a production site. Choosing to move hosting to Pantheon has ensured that not only will the city's website be available to its residents at all times, but also that the site and its data are protected against both server outages and any potential bad actors. The content editing team in Oxnard is composed of individuals from a wide array of departments within the city. For this reason, a customized department-based permission system was integrated into the site to ensure that authors from each department can easily manage their own content independent of other departments. This system leverages the PublishPress suite of permission and user role tools to implement role-based permissions and authoring workflows. Not only did this permission system improve overall site security, but it also simplified the user interface for authors to keep things organized, simple, and easy to use. To make content editing as intuitive as possible, we wanted to provide a visual builder interface. This way, authors could preview their content in real time and control page layouts with confidence that the changes they make on the back end will actually reflect on the front end of the site. On this slide is an example of the Visual Builder interface in action. This callout block is a custom block that we built for the Oxnard theme. It can be switched between the edit mode shown on the right, which displays the content entry fields for the author, and the preview mode on the left, which displays what the entered content will appear on the front end of the site. To meet these authoring needs, we chose to use the latest in WordPress theme technology, a full site editing block theme. WordPress full site editing, often shortened to FSE, is a type of theme that relies exclusively on a Gutenberg-based block builder. What that means is it gives authors a drag and drop environment in which they can build pages and layouts from pre-styled content blocks. Custom blocks were created to meet the unique authoring needs and provide content fields tailored to each block's specific purpose within the structure. FSE themes allow authors to have full control over their content and the overall page layout while still maintaining that pixel-perfect design consistency site-wide. In this brief video clip, I demonstrate how easy it is to use the block library to add both default and custom blocks to a page. We start by adding a divider block, which is a default WordPress core block, but we customized it with style options to match the site's design system that Catherine showed us earlier. For further control over content authoring, we then built the theme that extends this core library with custom components like the callout block that have unique functionality to support the site's individual needs. These custom blocks can provide easy-to-use style options within the guardrails of the overall site design. This gives authors the tools they need to create custom layouts and complex functionality without ever touching code. A few other examples of these custom components that we built for the city are stylized content sections with customizable imagery and video content, specialized project blocks to display the status and overview of the city's public projects at a glance, and department contact directories where each department can update their contact information site-wide from just one place. Content creators can easily rearrange their content in a page by dragging or clicking it into place, as well as duplicating entire sections of content with a single button. As you can see in this video, adding and updating content is very easy using the form fields on each block. Switching them into preview mode lets authors visually build those pages from independent blocks with confidence, knowing that what they see in the back-end builder is a true reflection of what the page will look like once published. Our final goal was to ensure that the site was truly accessible to everyone. A key takeaway from our strategy work was the diversity of the city population in Oxnard. To ensure that all residents would be able to access the vital information they need, we built the site with translation in mind. With the click of a button, users are able to seamlessly translate the site without any impact to site speed or URL structure. The other accessibility feature I want to highlight is the mega menu navigation. We extended an existing Mega Menu plugin integration to enhance keyboard navigation beyond the plugin's capabilities out of the box. In this brief clip, I am keyboard navigating through the Mega Menu of the site using both a combination of the standard tab pattern and arrow keys. We base the keyboard navigation patterns on those in use by the Blind Institute of Technology to ensure that users navigating via assistive devices are able to access all levels of the menu. Accessibility is part of everything that we do here at Atten, and our work with the City of Oxnard showcases our commitment to making websites truly accessible to everyone. I absolutely love talking about development, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have following this webinar. But for now, I'll hand things back to Andrea to discuss some of the outcomes of our Oxnard redesign project.
My gosh, how time has flown. It has been super fun to share the process that we went through to create the new flagship website for the city of Oxnard. Not only is the design beautiful, responsive, accessible, and meeting the needs of users in a vastly improved way, but the site has also seen great improvements in key metrics. A great data point to examine after a new site has been live for a few months is the number of site visits. In Google Analytics 4, a site visit or session refers to a period of time when a user actively interacts with a website, essentially representing a single instance of a user engaging with your site, which starts when they first access it and ends after a set period of inactivity, usually 30 minutes by default. In collaboration with our partners at the city, we learned that when comparing data from 2023 and that same month in 2024, the site on average saw a 55% increase in site visits from the same month the year prior. And when added together for this 5-month period, the overall increase was 83%. While it's always challenging to know exactly what aspect of the redesign contributed to the increased visits, my hunch is that it's a combination of many factors, including improved navigation, better SEO, and a more modern design. Another data point that saw remarkable improvements was the site's bounce rate. A bounce rate refers to the percentage of visitors that leave a web page without taking an action, such as clicking on a link or filling out a form. In 2023, the city's website had an average month-over-month bounce rate of 35%. But with the new site, that rate dropped to 10%. And when all numbers in this 5-month period are totaled together, the overall reduction in bounce rate was 25%. Throughout this project, we were incredibly focused on getting users to where they needed or wanted to go as intuitively and as quickly as possible. Before the redesign, the city site didn't have a utility menu at the top of the page. Users became accustomed to going to the services page to pay their utility bills online. Now we have a very well-placed pay menu as the first item people see on the site right after the logo. Plus, the word pay itself is doing a ton of work. About 15% of the site's overall traffic is users just trying to pay their bill. So shifting away from navigating to a services page and going directly to the pay option has provided massive benefits to users and resulted in a 33% decrease in users going to the services section of the site. Ultimately, this means we were successful in providing more direct access to the tasks that users come to the site to complete. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that this case study of Atten's partnership with the City of Oxnard helped illustrate the process that we go through from project initiation or kickoff all the way to site launch.